Hello, this is Father Randy Rentner, and this is our fifth video clip on Sacred Heart Parish and the Congregation of Holy Cross. So we're trying to see the connection between Sacred Heart and the Congregation of Holy Cross. And in our first video, we talked about holy orders. The second video, we talked about religious life. In the third video, we talked about Holy Cross history, the founding. Then in our fourth, we talked about formation and how one becomes a Holy Cross priest or brother. In this fifth video, I'm covering famous luminaries, important people that have come through Holy Cross, and that a lot of people who know Holy Cross are familiar with these people. So the first one is going to be Father Edward Sorin. He's the one who founded the University of Notre Dame, which is by far our most famous university in Holy Cross. Then Father Ted Hesburgh, the one who probably made it the most famous. Then we have three different people who have been recognized by the Church for their holiness. A servant of God, Vincent Macaulay, the Venerable Patrick Peyton, and now canonized Saint Andre Bessette. So our first one is Father Sorin, the founder of the University of Notre Dame, and here he is as an older man and in his most distinctive beard and the Holy Cross habit. He was one of the first priests, along with Blessed Basil Moreau, the founder of Holy Cross, who took perpetual vows on that first day, August 15th, 1840. And the next year, he was sent away. There were only 4 priests and a number of brothers in the congregation, and one of the first things Father Sorin did was to send one of his best and brightest out to the wilderness of North America. 6 brothers and their chaplain, Father Sorin. And a year later, Father Sorin founded what would become the University of Notre Dame. And what I love about this photo is that it takes place in winter, which is very long in northern Indiana. Father Sorin had to rebuild the university after it burnt down in 1879, after it had been around for many years. And he built it, as he said, even greater than before. The story is, he said, they had dreamed too small. And so he put a dome, he put Mary on top of the dome of the main building of Notre Dame, so that everyone could see who helped found the University of Notre Dame. But in addition to the University of Notre Dame, he founded St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas. And there's a photo of the main building in Austin, Texas, and named St. Edward's after his own patron, being named Edward Sorin. And the other picture is a picture of Father Sorin, a picture of the statue of Father Sorin in front of the main building, the administration building at Notre Dame. It's a significant landmark as you enter the campus. As I said, Father Sorin founded the university, but Father Ted Hesburgh is the one who probably made it a world-class university. It was well known for its sports, its football, and it was a very popular school for Chicago, Southside Chicago particularly, and a lot of Irish immigrants, and that's why it got its nickname, the Fighting Irish. But it was Father Ted Hesburgh who turned this into a major university, and it's because of his own connections and abilities and his great passion for building up the University of Notre Dame. He brought it to the forefront of American Catholic universities, and personally, he also held leadership positions in numerous groups: civil rights, atomic energy, immigration reform, third world development. He was chosen by several presidents to be on different boards and different agencies. And he was also active in numerous businesses, nonprofits, civic organizations, and missions for the Vatican. Here he is with President John F. Kennedy in the White House. And there's another picture of him with Martin Luther King in 1964. He was on the cover of Time magazine. And after his death, there was a stamp with his image on it as well. Father Ted was the president of Notre Dame for 35 years, and I think he still holds the record for the most doctoral degrees, honorary doctoral degrees from any universities in the world, and he is famous for having said Mass in Antarctica, in every place he's ever been, and he is proud of the fact that he got to fly in jet planes, military jet planes, breaking the sound barrier. He was an astounding man. At his funeral, which was huge, I wasn't able to go to it, but they say it was the largest one at Notre Dame. And the largest building, the tallest building certainly at Notre Dame is, the chapel is actually taller, but the one with the most stories is the library at Notre Dame. And when I was a student, it was called the Memorial Library, and now they call it the Theodore M. Hesburgh Library. So those are our two first ones, Father Sorin and Father Ted Hesburgh at Notre Dame. The rest are folks who are on their way or have already been made a saint. And I just thought we'd stop for a second and look at the process to become a saint. And you can pause and read this if you'd like. But the process starts with servant of God. A local bishop proposes a person's name to be a servant of God, and that's the beginning of the process. If the Vatican Council decides that the person has lived a life of heroic virtue, they can be moved up to the state of Venerable, and that becomes their title, Venerable. If there's a miracle that supports the cause, the person can be moved up to be blessed, to be beatified. Father Moreau is now in that state of beatification, so we call him Blessed Basil Moreau. And finally, after another miracle, you can be chosen by the church and to be canonized, and afterwards you're called saint. So we have one of each of these categories in Holy Cross at present. Servant of God, Vincent Macaulay. This is the first step towards canonization. And Father Vincent Macaulay was a missionary and a founding bishop in Uganda. So he was a priest first in Bangladesh, even though he lived and grew up in the United States. But he went to Bangladesh, and then he moved to Uganda and Africa. So imagine the difficulties of learning two different cultures and two different languages in your lifetime. He became the first bishop of the Diocese of Fort Portal in Uganda and was very influential in the Church of East Africa. He faced illnesses for much of his life and lived in foreign countries for most of his life. And he faced the great challenge of starting a diocese and developing the church. And here's a picture of him in his older days, being blessed by one of the young men that he had already just ordained as a priest. So the next step in canonization is to be called Venerable. And Father Patrick Peyton is now the Venerable Father Patrick Peyton. He's also called the Rosary Priest because of his great efforts to promote the Rosary. As a young man, he was stricken with tuberculosis and was sick for a year. But he prayed the rosary, and at the end of a novena of praying, he discovered himself cured by Mary's intercessions, and the doctors confirmed it. He was called, as I said, the Rosary Priest, and that was his big vocation in life, promoting prayer to the Blessed Mother through the Rosary. And he went all over the world, more than 40 countries, gathering together more than 28 million people worldwide in prayer. And here's a picture in 1961 in San Francisco, over 500,000 people. In addition to the Family Rosary Crusade, he also started Family Theater, which used film and television to evangelize. And you can see Bing Crosby in one photo and Mother Teresa, and I left out Pope John Paul II down there in the lower corner. But this media and film industry business still exists today, and it's directed by my classmate, Father Dave Guffey, whom some of you may know from having been the novice director here for some time. He's out in California. His famous motto is, "The family that prays together stays together," and it continues to resonate in the church today. I inserted a picture of Blessed Basil Moreau because that's the next step. We go from servant of God to venerable to blessed. And I already covered Father Moreau in our third video clip on Holy Cross history. And I encourage you to go back and watch that if you haven't done so. But now we get to our most famous and certainly the most widely recognized member of the Congregation of Holy Cross, Saint Andre Bessette. He's the first and so far only canonized saint in our community. He was born in 1845 in Montreal and suffered from losing both his parents. And he had a strong illness. In fact, he wasn't going to be accepted in the Congregation of Holy Cross because of his sickness. But luckily, we did accept him. He spent some time in, I think, Rhode Island, in the textile mills, and then returned to Canada and pursued his vocation as a brother. He entered Holy Cross in 1870 and took the name Brother Andre. His first assignment, because he was sickly, was to be the porter, the doorman of the community school in Montreal, because his health was not strong enough to allow him to do much more. As the porter, Brother Andre fostered devotion to St. Joseph among the sick and soon became known as the Miracle Man of Montreal. And many miraculous cures were attributed to his intercession to Joseph. Brother Andre always pointed to St. Joseph and prayed that people would be healed through his prayers. And even today, you can see hundreds of crutches left behind by people who were cured. In 1904, he founded the world-renowned Oratory of St. Joseph, which is the largest shrine in the world dedicated to St. Joseph. I think it's still the largest dome, concrete dome in North America. Not sure if something has been built since. He died in 1937 at 91. Over 1 million people came to his funeral. And at his tomb, which is pictured here, thousands of people still come to pray, especially now that he's been canonized, to ask for spiritual and physical healing in their own lives. And you'll recognize the statue of Saint Andre Bessette. That's in the front of our church at Sacred Heart Church. And the feast day for Saint Andre is January 6th. And there you see Andre now that he's canonized, he can be depicted with a halo around his head, and he's holding a statue of Saint Joseph.
So those are some important luminaries in Holy Cross. This is a picture of 2019 novice class who took first vows. And who knows, among them, there may be some other luminaries ahead. So that was our 5th video on Holy Cross luminaries. And in our next set of videos, I intend to look more at Sacred Heart Church and our connection here in the parish with the Congregation of Holy Cross. Thanks for watching.